Hello friends, for today's topic is subclavian artery. So subclavian artery is a very important artery which supplies many structures of the neck and the brain through its branches. Firstly beginning with its origin. So this is the arch of aorta. Now left subclavian artery emerges from the arch of aorta itself. This is the left subclavian artery. This is the left common carotid artery, and here's the brachiocephalic artery which divides into right common carotid artery, and here's the right subclavian artery. So summing up, arch of aorta has three branches: brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid artery, and left subclavian artery. And in other words, right subclavian artery is the branch of brachiocephalic trunk or brachiocephalic artery, whereas left subclavian artery is the branch of arch of aorta itself. And to be precise, subclavian artery on both the sides originates behind the sternoclavicular joint. The right subclavian artery originates behind the right sternoclavicular joint from the brachiocephalic trunk, and the left subclavian artery originates behind the left sternoclavicular joint from the arch of aorta itself. And this artery continues as the axillary artery in the upper limb, which in turn continues as brachial artery. Now let's discuss the parts of subclavian artery. So if any artery is divided into three parts for a convenient study of that artery, then that work is done by a muscle. There's always a muscle which divides an artery into three parts, and here that muscle is scalenus anterior muscle, which divides subclavian artery into three parts. Here's the first part, which lies medial to the muscle, the scalenus anterior muscle. Then the second part, which lies behind the scalenus anterior muscle. And in other words, you may say that scalenus anterior comes in the anterior relations of the second part of subclavian artery, as it lies anterior to it. And the part lateral to it is the third part of subclavian artery. Now let's discuss the relations of subclavian artery, the various parts of subclavian artery, and let's begin with the anterior relations of the first part. So we have five things, and three of them are the contents of carotid sheath. Yes, which are they? Please name it. Yes, they are the common carotid artery, the internal jugular vein, and the vagus nerve. Plus we have two more structures: the sternothyroid and sternohyoid muscles, and the sternocleidomastoid. So these are the five things which come anterior to the first part of subclavian artery. Now talking about the anterior relations of the second part of subclavian artery. So while describing the division of subclavian artery into three parts, at that time I told that the second part lies behind the scalenus anterior muscle. So scalenus anterior is one of the anterior relations of second part, and here it is. We have scalenus anterior muscle, then sternocleidomastoid. Now see that sternocleidomastoid is comes under the anterior relations of all the three parts. So it's here also. And the third one is the right phrenic nerve, which lies deep to the prevertebral fascia, a modification of deep cervical fascia. So summing up, we have three things: the scalenus anterior muscle, the sternocleidomastoid, and the right phrenic nerve, deep to the prevertebral fascia. So now coming to the posterior or the postero-inferior relations of the first and second part. So here's the subclavian artery, and we have three things related to the lung and its pleura. So firstly we have the suprapleural membrane, the cervical pleura, and the apex of lung. So these three are the postero-inferior relations of both first and second part. Now talking about the anterior relations of the third part of subclavian artery. So we have two things, and as I said earlier, we have sternocleidomastoid in anterior relations of all the three parts. So here also we have it, but here we have the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid and middle one-third of the clavicle. So there are two structures which come within the anterior relations of third part of subclavian artery. Now talking about the superior relations of second and third part. So here again, second and third parts of subclavian artery share the same superior relations, and these are the upper and middle trunks of brachial plexus. Now talking about the inferior relation of third part of subclavian artery, it's clearly seen in the diagram of which I drew earlier to depict the origin of subclavian artery and its three parts, that the first rib lies below the subclavian artery. So the inferior relation of the third part is the first rib. So coming to the postero-inferior relations of the third part of subclavian artery. So firstly we have the lower trunk of brachial plexus. Now remember that the upper and middle trunks of brachial plexus come under the superior relations of third part, right? So the lower trunk is but naturally inferior to them, and these are the posterior-inferior relations. So it is quite logical that we have the lower trunk of brachial plexus in these posterior-inferior relations. Then we have the scalenus medius muscle, and the remaining three are the same as posterior-inferior relations of first and second part, that is the suprapleural membrane, the cervical pleura, and the apex of lung. So summing up everything, we have five things as the posterior-inferior relations of the third part. the lower trunk of brachial plexus, scalenus medius muscle, the suprapleural membrane, cervical pleura, and the apex of lung. Now, let's discuss the branches of subclavian artery. So, the first part of subclavian artery, which is the part medial to scalenus anterior muscle, gives 4 branches, and the third part occasionally gives a branch, whereas the second part gives no branches. So, let's name them. So, talking about the branches of first part of subclavian artery, we have number 1 the vertebral artery, then the internal thoracic artery, and the thyrocervical trunk. And you must have heard the name of this thyrocervical trunk and its branches, as they are involved in the anastomosis around the scapula. Well, that's an upper limb. So, this thyrocervical trunk further has 3 branches: the suprascapular branch, the transverse cervical branch, and the inferior thyroid artery, the one which is involved in the arterial supply of thyroid. And the 4th branch is costocervical trunk, but it is not visible in this diagram. I'll explain it to you with another diagram which will make it more clear. So now we come to some of the branches of inferior thyroid artery. So firstly we have the glandular branches to thyroid gland. Then we have the inferior laryngeal artery. Now superior laryngeal artery arises from the superior thyroid artery, and inferior laryngeal artery arises from inferior thyroid artery. Also there is one similarity between these two, as they both are accompanied by a nerve, and both are laryngeal nerves. The superior laryngeal artery is accompanied by the external laryngeal nerve, and the inferior laryngeal artery is accompanied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and it goes to the larynx to supply it. Then we have the ascending cervical artery, which ascends above in front of the cervical vertebrae. Then we have the branches to esophagus, trachea, pharynx, and the surrounding structures. So now we shall discuss the costocervical trunk. And before that, let's first understand this diagram. So this is just a schematic representation. The first part of subclavian artery has been cut from front, and actually these branches arise from different levels, but they are shown like they arise from the same level just for understanding, just to make the concept. So these are the 4 branches. Here's the vertebral artery, here's the internal thoracic artery, here's the thyrocervical trunk, and here is our costocervical. So the costocervical trunk has 2 branches. First one is the deep cervical artery. Now this is the transverse process of C7 vertebrae. Here's the first rib, the neck of first rib, and here's the neck of second rib. So the deep cervical artery ascends upwards between the transverse process of C7 vertebrae and the first rib, whereas the superior intercostal artery descends below the first rib and divides into 2 branches: first posterior intercostal and the second posterior intercostal. The third part of subclavian artery may give rise to dorsal scapular artery, and that too occasionally. It's not necessary that in every individual these branches present. It's an occasional phenomenon. So revising all the branches again. So there are 3 parts, and only first part gives branches, third part gives branches occasionally, and second part gives no branches. So the branches of first part are the vertebral artery, internal thoracic artery, the thyrocervical trunk, which further divides into the supraclavicular artery, transverse cervical artery, and the inferior thyroid artery. The 4th branch is costocervical trunk, which divides into deep cervical artery and the superior intercostal artery, which further divides into first and second posterior intercostal arteries. So now let's discuss some of the applied aspects related to subclavian artery. So let's begin with the subclavian steal syndrome. So you can identify all the structure shown in this diagram. This is the arch of aorta, and this is the brachiocephalic trunk, and the right common carotid and the right subclavian arising from it. And here is the left common carotid and left subclavian arising from the arch of aorta. Now supposingly if there is a blockade in subclavian artery of any of these 2 sides, supposingly let's say on the left side there is a blockade of subclavian artery proximal to the origin of vertebral artery. Now both the vertebral arteries, each from one side, combine to form the basilar artery, and this basilar artery supplies some areas of brain. So supposingly if there is a blockade of left subclavian artery, then the blood cannot go further. So to compensate, to continue its blood supply, this left subclavian artery steals blood from the right subclavian artery through these vertebral arteries. The blood goes like this to continue the flow in the left subclavian artery distal to the obstructing element. So, but naturally the blood supply to the brain is hampered. Sufficient amount of blood won't go in the basilar artery, and so brain will be deprived of oxygen, and thus nervous symptoms are seen due to this impairment. Now another point is regarding the cervical ribs. So what is a cervical rib? Cervical rib is an embryological anomaly where an accessory rib arises from the costal facet of the 7th cervical vertebra. Normally ribs arise from the thoracic vertebrae, but in some of the cases it happens so that one rib also arises from the costal process of the 7 cervical vertebra, and this abnormal rip often compresses the subclavian artery, which may lead to diminishing of the radial pulse. Now we shall talk about dysphagia lusoria. So sometimes it may happen so that the right subclavian artery arises from the descending thoracic aorta, and in such cases it lies behind the esophagus, and also it may cause the compression of esophagus, which may lead to dysphagia, the difficulty in eating. So this condition is known as dysphagia lusoria. It may happen so that there is an aneurysm in the third part of subclavian artery. Now, aneurysm is an abnormal dilatation of artery, about which you will learn in detail in your pathology. An aneurysm may occur in the third part of subclavian artery, and it may cause the compression of brachial plexus. This may result in pain, numbness, and weakness. So this was all about subclavian artery. I hope you enjoyed learning with me. Thanks for watching.